The first thing people noticed wasn't the rust. It was the laughter. The executives standing outside the massive glass headquarters of Mercer Automotive couldn't stop laughing as a faded blue tow truck rattled into the employee parking lot, dragging behind it 5 battered, dented, barely recognizable classic cars. "What is this?" one executive chuckled. "A rolling junkyard?" Standing beside the truck was 38-year-old Ethan Brooks, a widowed single father who worked nights repairing delivery vans and weekends salvaging forgotten vehicles. His clothes were stained with grease, his boots were worn thin, and exhaustion showed beneath his eyes. But standing beside him was his 12-year-old daughter, Lily. She smiled proudly. "These aren't junk," she whispered. "They just need someone to believe in them." Unfortunately, someone else had already decided they were worthless. Across the parking lot walked Nathan Mercer, billionaire CEO of Mercer Automotive. Every employee straightened immediately. Nathan had built one of America's largest electric vehicle companies. His reputation was simple. Brilliant. Demanding. Never sentimental. He stopped beside Ethan's collection of wrecked classics and folded his arms. "So you're the guy who bought those?" Ethan nodded. "Yes, sir." Nathan walked slowly around the vehicles. A 1967 Shelby Mustang covered in rust. A forgotten aluminum-bodied roadster. An experimental prototype pickup with missing panels. A hand-built racing coupe. And an old station wagon whose wood trim had nearly rotted away. Nathan laughed. "You paid money for these?" $500. The executives burst into laughter again. Nathan shook his head. 5 broken cars for $500? He smiled sarcastically. "You overpaid." Lily squeezed her father's hand. Ethan simply smiled. "Maybe." Nathan shrugged. "I'll save you future disappointment." He reached into his pocket. "I'll give you $600. You make $100 profit. Deal?" The executive smiled. Easy money. Easy embarrassment. But Ethan surprised everyone. "No thank you." Nathan blinked. "No? I didn't buy them to flip. You bought garbage to keep?" "I bought forgotten history." Nathan laughed one final time before walking away. Good luck rebuilding garbage. 3 years earlier, life had looked very different. After losing his wife to cancer, Ethan nearly sold everything. Bills piled up. Grief overwhelmed him. Lily stopped speaking for weeks. The only thing that slowly brought them back together was an old pickup truck. Every Saturday they repaired something together. One bolt. One wire. One broken part. They weren't fixing vehicles. They were fixing themselves. Soon weekends became adventures. Searching abandoned barns. Old farms. Estate auctions. Anywhere forgotten machines waited for one last chance. Lily named every vehicle. She researched its history. She imagined the people who once drove them. Ethan restored them patiently. Not for profit. For purpose. One rainy afternoon an elderly farmer named Walter called. "You still rescue old cars?" "I try. I've got 5 nobody wants." When Ethan arrived, the cars sat inside a collapsing tobacco warehouse. Dust covered everything. Most buyers had already walked away. "They're beyond saving." Walter smiled sadly. "Maybe. But I promised my father they'd never be crushed." Ethan looked closer. Something felt different. The parts didn't match. Several panels looked handmade. The engines carried unusual serial numbers. Walter shrugged. "My dad worked with engineers back in the 60s. They stored odd projects here. I never understood them. The estate auction listed all 5 together. Starting bid: $500. Nobody else raised a hand. Sold. That evening Lily couldn't sleep. Dad. What? What if these aren't ordinary? Ethan smiled. Everything has a story. She climbed from bed holding her laptop. Look. She had spent hours researching faded identification plates. One number appeared nowhere. Another matched a tiny article from 1968 describing cancelled experimental fuel systems. A third referenced an engineer whose records disappeared after his company closed. Interesting. Very interesting. But impossible to prove. Months turned into years. While everyone chased quick money, Ethan chased understanding. He refused shortcuts. Instead of replacing unusual parts, he carefully documented every bolt. He contacted retired mechanics, former engineers, automotive historians, museum volunteers. Most ignored him. Some encouraged him. One elderly engineer cried after seeing photos. I thought those prototypes were destroyed. Little by little, the mystery unfolded. The 5 vehicles weren't random. They represented 5 stages of an ambitious engineering project decades ahead of its time. Each contained unique handcrafted innovations. Separately. Interesting. Together. Historically priceless. Word quietly spread through restoration circles. Collectors began calling. One offered $2 million. Ethan declined. Another offered $10 million. No. Lily looked shocked. Dad. We could pay for college. We could buy a house. We could. So why not? Because they belong together. Meanwhile, Nathan Mercer announced Mercer Automotive's biggest museum project. The future started yesterday. The company planned the largest exhibition of forgotten American automotive innovation. Curators searched the nation. Most prototypes had disappeared forever. Until one historian mentioned Ethan Brooks. Nathan frowned. The junkyard guy? The same one. They aren't junk anymore. Nathan requested photographs. Minutes later, his confident smile disappeared. His museum director looked pale. Nathan. If these are authentic, they complete the missing history. Without them, our entire exhibition has a giant hole. Nathan immediately requested a meeting. This time, he drove to Ethan's modest workshop. No executives. No cameras. Just Nathan. He found Ethan and Lily polishing chrome beneath warm afternoon sunlight. The workshop walls displayed handwritten restoration notes instead of expensive equipment. Nathan cleared his throat. I owe you an apology. Ethan smiled gently. For laughing? Yes. I judged too quickly. Lily offered Nathan a cold bottle of water. He accepted quietly. Nathan slowly walked around each completed restoration. The craftsmanship stunned him. Every scratch had been researched. Every repair respected original engineering. Nothing flashy. Nothing fake. Just patience. Just care. Finally Nathan spoke. I'd like to buy them. Ethan asked calmly. For what purpose? The museum. So families can learn. So forgotten engineers receive recognition. So history survives. Ethan nodded. That's a better answer than profit. Nathan smiled slightly. My opening offer is $50 million. Ethan remained silent. Nathan increased it. $100 million. Still nothing. 200. 300. The silence continued. Nathan finally laughed nervously. I've negotiated billion-dollar mergers. I've never struggled this much buying cars. Lily giggled. They aren't just cars. Nathan looked at Ethan. What would convince you? Ethan answered softly. Tell me the names. The names? The engineers. Nathan hesitated. I don't know. Ethan walked toward a framed wall. Every vehicle included photographs of forgotten designers. Mechanics. Metal workers. Draftsmen. Test drivers. Families. Hundreds of hours had uncovered their stories. They spent decades being forgotten. I won't sell their work to someone who only wants trophies. Nathan stared silently. For the first time in years, the billionaire felt small. Over the following months, Nathan changed. Instead of sending lawyers, he personally met surviving family members, interviewed retired workers, recorded oral histories, funded scholarships honoring unknown engineers, restored neglected archives, preserved handwritten blueprints. He wasn't buying cars anymore. He was protecting legacies. When he returned, he carried no contract. Only a notebook filled with names. Every contributor. Every family. Every story. He handed it to Ethan. I know them now. Ethan slowly turned the pages. Then smiled. You finally understand what they're worth. Nathan nodded. I do. So, will you sell? Ethan looked at Lily. She smiled. It's time. Nathan whispered. My board approved $500 million. The workshop fell completely silent. $500 million. For the same 5 cars people once mocked for costing $500. Nathan extended his hand. Ethan shook it. But I have conditions. Anything. The cars stay together forever. Done. Every engineer receives equal recognition. Done. Free admission for schoolchildren every first Saturday. Nathan smiled. Done. And... Lily interrupted. Promise nobody laughs at forgotten dreams anymore. Nathan's eyes became wet. I promise. 1 year later. Thousands of families visited the museum. Children crowded around the 5 restored vehicles. Not because they were expensive, but because every display explained something greater. Innovation begins with curiosity. History survives through kindness. Every masterpiece starts as something others overlook. At the entrance stood a bronze plaque. Not honoring billionaires. Not celebrating wealth. Instead it read, dedicated to every person who chose patience over pride, preservation over profit, and kindness over judgment. Nathan insisted Ethan's name appear beneath it. Ethan refused. Instead he requested one final change. Add Walter's name. The elderly farmer who kept his promise. Add every unknown mechanic. Every apprentice. Every forgotten dreamer. Nathan agreed. Because greatness was never built by one person. Years later, a young boy visiting the museum asked his mother, why didn't that man sell the cars the first time? She smiled. Because some things become valuable only after someone believes in them long enough. Nearby, Ethan watched quietly. Lily, now an automotive engineer herself, smiled beside him. They didn't become famous because they found hidden treasure. They became unforgettable because they treated forgotten things, and forgotten people, with dignity before anyone else saw their worth. And perhaps that's the greatest investment anyone can ever make. Not money. Not business. Not even success. but believing in potential long before the world believes with you. Because kindness often sees value where pride only sees rust. And sometimes, the greatest fortunes begin with 5 broken cars. And one father who refused to give up on them.